Peace everyone, Unmasked here and welcome back to another critique video. I have this beautiful watercolor piece by Lisa. She submitted this for a critique and I decided to go with this one because this is a more stylized project, and I actually had a question today in the art club live stream, and it was about stylization. Like, can you critique stylized artwork? And for me, the answer was obvious. Yes, you can definitely critique stylized artwork. Even with a stylization, there's things that you can do wrong and do right. And in this piece, there's just a few things that I'm going to talk about to help improve your stylized work. Of course, depending on the stylization, these may or may not help. But in this case, I think what I'll have to offer to talk about will help some of you with your stylization. So anyways, let's jump right into this. First off, I love the colors, love the composition. Everything about this is really, really great. The skin tones are really soft and lovely. I can feel the sun and the colors are great. Everything about it is just really well done. So let's talk about some of the things. And really for this project here, maybe only like three mild things that I want to discuss to help improve it, or what I would perceive to be an improvement upon it. The first thing is just about the background. So even though you have a stylized piece, if I take the background and I just soften it a little bit to bring the viewer's eyes a bit closer forward, so I'm literally just going to lighten the whole image here, not to a significant degree, and then I'm going to isolate the background. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to lighten this part of the background. So just these little trees or bushes or whatever they're supposed to be, the grass here, I'm just lightening it. This part right here, and everything around her will be just a little bit lighter. And what that's going to do is it's going to make her colors stand out a bit more, and it's going to make these flowers in the front stand out a little bit more. And maybe that might be just lightened a little bit too much, but you can see it's a very subtle change. But by doing that, you can see how it sort of, the background fades away a little bit. You could even argue trying to have it a little less textured, a little blurrier. Now with watercolors, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with watercolors. I don't even know how you would do it with watercolors. Perhaps you would just sort of let it bleed a little bit, similar to how you did the sky. So if I blur this, perhaps maybe that is a possibility. Now, I wasn't thinking about blurring or having it blurry, but if the background there is softer in value and then also softer in texture, those are two different contrasts that you can use to help just create more volume, create more space in your work, whether it's stylized or realistic. This works in both ways. So here's blur, and here's without. So just a subtle blur. I think I'll keep the subtle blur. I think it looks nice with the blur. So here's before. Here's without blur in the background. You notice the saturation levels of the left side and the right side, they match pretty close. I do notice a little bit of effort went into not saturating like these flowers and the grass as much as the green and the flowers over here. So I definitely noticed that, but I think you could have gone even a little bit further. And that's one mild thing that I would recommend considering a change to in the future for your stylized artwork. The next thing that I wanted to just sort of briefly talk about is the shading on the skin. So don't get me wrong, I really like the skin. I think you did a fantastic job on it, and I like how smooth it is and how bright it looks. But on the arm down here, you have a little bit more of a darker tone, especially this color here. It's not significantly dark, but it's noticeably dark, right? It's noticeably dark than anything you have in the face. And I think that this is not to your benefit here, because the face is noticeably brighter than the rest of the body. And I think just underneath the eyebrows a little bit, so just a touch of shadow underneath the eyebrows, coming up towards the bridge of the nose. So this area here is usually darker, especially given the light sources above your subject here. So her eyelids, the crease of her eyelids, and a little bit underneath her eyebrows. So a little bit here. This is difficult to do with the mouse and keyboard, but I think I'm getting my point across. So her eyes being closed, that crease of her eyelid, just a little bit, and then also the tip of her nose. Don't forget that, you want to think of the tip of the nose as sort of like a cylinder, or not a cylinder, a sphere. And so you want to have a little bit of a shape underneath that tip of the nose. And when her face is looking up, by drawing that little like crescent underneath the tip of her nose, it's going to give her nose that trajectory that you're trying to emulate here, with her face slightly looking up, the nose is pointed up. And so this helps create that effect that the nose is pointed up. Whereas here, it's just a little bit flat. And then by adding just that little crescent there, it looks a bit better. And then also you have the cast shadow from her head onto her neck. Her nose should also have a little bit of a cast shadow, probably something like this. And then also just underneath her lip. And try not to draw too much of a line where the chin and the jaw is. So have a little bit softer line here, and that will soften her jaw and not make it look so sharp. And then you could also argue a little bit of shading underneath the cheekbones, since the cheekbones, the cheeks come out, so a little bit of the sun would be casting a subtle shadow right there underneath the cheekbones, like bronzer almost. And then also the cast shadow from the hair, you don't want to forget that. So make sure you do a little bit of a cast shadow for the hair. And I'm going to talk about the hair next, but a little bit of cast shadow. So here is what it looks like now, with just a few touches of shadows that sort of match the rest of the body. So here, it just gives the face a little bit more form without overdoing it. Now again, depending on how the stylization you want to go with the face, I will totally understand, like mitigating maybe the cast shadow underneath the eyebrows or the cheekbones. But for sure, you want to strongly consider that little crescent underneath the tip of the nose to lift that nose up so it doesn't look so flat. Now, the next thing, I did this before I started recording, and that is I wanted to talk about the hair. So really, I think everything is working perfectly in this project, even without my changes. I think it's working really, really well, except for the hair. So this kind of hair I often refer to as spaghetti hair, because you sort of painted each individual strand of hair. And there's a lot of gaps, there's a lot of holes. And what that creates is it creates very flat hair, which doesn't fit your style here, because her arms have a nice cylindrical 3-dimensional shape. So you're definitely going for 3 dimensions here. It's not a 2-dimensional style. It's not a 2D style that you're going for here. It's very 3-dimensional. So everything's 3-dimensional except for the hair. The hair is very 2-dimensional. And the reason is that it lacks that volume, because you've sort of painted in each individual strand. And what I've done with the hair here is, like I said, I did it before I started recording. is I showed you a better guide of creating hair. And what I've done, it's very simple, and I did it with a mouse. So don't berate me too much in the comments regarding its look. But what I wanted to show you is how simple it is to create volume in your hair by utilizing shapes. And I usually call these shapes squiggly diamonds, but essentially what I've done is I've created like a flat body of hair, and then I used two tones to either be top hair or like underneath shadow type hair. And so the shapes that I create, like for instance, for instance, this shape here. Why is that not red? Okay, there we go. This shape here, this was just one shape, right? And I knew that this shape was going to be all shadow, so I just made it a dark brown. And I did select from your colors here. So I selected this dark brown. I made it just a touch darker. And then I did some shadow here. That's like lifting up the hair. And then I did this shadow here. And I did a random shadow here, and I did a random shadow here. And what that hair represents is underneath not being hit by the light, right? So very simple shapes. And then everything else, I just created this brown. I just created this single color of brown. I created a little bit of loose hairs coming down a little bit just to give it some hair texture, implied hair texture. And then of course I did this one little swoop of hair that cuts through the dark stuff, and that helps create layers of hair. And then all I did was scribble on a few little highlights, and I grabbed some of the colors that exist in your hair, and I just used it in coloring this hair. I did it relatively quickly. And then also I added in this little swoop of hair that's coming across her face because, you know, she has long hair. She's outside. The wind is blowing. Odds are her face is not going to be perfectly framed by her hair unless she like tucks it behind her ear or something. So I thought, you know, give a little bit of motion to the hair, add some body to it, add some thickness. I tried my best to like keep it within the sort of look. I colored it pretty much as what I sort of imagined her hair looking like. I just gave it a little bit more form, and then I used those two-tone colors to create shadow and light, and that creates the depth in the hair. And really, that's about it. So obviously, there's plenty of different ways to create hair in different styles, since this is a stylized piece after all. But I think by utilizing this simple two-tone strategy to create more voluminous hair, I think benefits this work a bit. And you can see she just stands out even more because now with her hair like this, you see her face, you see her arm, and those are the features that make her stand out. And I think when you really develop the hair, now her whole portrait stands out because even her hair stands out from the background. Whereas here, it sort of gets lost a little bit in the background. So anyways, here are my changes that I made. And yeah, I hope that you guys found this helpful. I enjoyed doing it. And don't forget to join the Facebook group and the Discord. I have all the links in the description. And again, I stream Monday through Thursday. So I hope to see you in one of the live streams. Take care. Peace.